expertise. But speaking of banking, we have Dan Ripplinger here with OCCU to give the next presentation.
I'll try to stay on time. So Matt, when I hit 10 minutes, give me a signal. Yeah. If I go to 12, just come up and attack me. But don't knock over the electronic. It's expensive. Otherwise, Bonnie will attack you. Real quick before we get started, a little pop quiz. How many of you think of or really even knew that credit unions do business lending? Surprise! Yes. Okay. So at OCCU, for our, kind of our entity story here, I came on about 5.5 years ago, something like that, to help kind of build the business banking, for the lack of a better term, program at OCCU, and we've got about a little over 3,000 business members in our field of membership, and we got kind of nudging up to about a $200 million business lending portfolio. So quite a bit of activity that we've got at the credit union. So my topic today is just preparing to borrow for your business, which is kind of a natural evolution of the talks that we've heard so far. So this is just a quick table of contents of what we're going to go over. Time in business, common entity structures, which was touched on earlier. What we call the 5 C's of credit for business lending. That's an important thing to remember. And then just some of the financial exhibits that we would expect if you're going to apply for business credit in your business. So time in business. So lenders, traditional financial institution lenders, are historical looking. So we want some time in business. So typically that threshold is 2 years in business so that we can look back at your performance. And then we plug in your request. Say, okay, well, if things tend to kind of keep going how they're going, how would you perform based on that? So we're cash flow lenders. Now, not to say that we can't look at projections. We often do look at projections and how do they contribute to the past story. What does that look like going forward? But there are other avenues for getting funds if you're less than 2 years in business. So there's some micro lending programs. There's non-traditional finance, and there's SBA guarantee, so which we do as well. So let's move on to the next one here. Common entity structures. Now there's a lot that I left off here, so all the attorneys, you can punch me afterwards. So sole proprietorship is fairly common for, like they said, kind of a mom and pop business. Limited liability company, we know that. And to Jill's point earlier, please write out an operating agreement and have it be very detailed, because we often get caught in the middle of disputes. Partnerships and LLCs were like, hey, they're trying to remove me as a signer. They're trying to empty the account. And we're like, hey, we don't. Yeah, talk to your attorney. So hey, yes, that's a true story.
That's a true story.
S corporation and C corporation. Now there's some others. Partnerships, professional corporations like law firms. But these are the ones that we see the most. And I will tell you to tack on to that 1 or 2 years of business. If you're a closely held business, most lenders, no matter how long you've been in business, will try to get a personal guarantee. It's just kind of the way of life. They call that piercing the entity veil or piercing the corporate veil. And typically the reason why is because in a business, when you're out there, if you're growing and becoming successful over the years, you're accumulating net worth in that company, unless you're an S Corp or an LLC where you're kind of distributing it out to yourself. But we kind of look at, one of the measures that we look at is leverage in the company. So there are often times where the lender is putting twice as much into your business as you have, sometimes 3 times. So if we've got 3 times as much in your business than you do, we expect some personal assurances that we're going to get repaid. So if the business takes a dip, like, hey, I've got Matt over here, like, hey, okay, all right. So you've signed on the dotted line too. So you're all in, we're all in. So that's the way we look at things. Where you oftentimes can skirt the guarantee. If it's like a commercial real estate loan and it's really low leverage, like I got an apartment complex 50% LTV, cash flow is super strong. It's like, okay, we're probably not going to get hurt on that, you know. So, oh, and by the way, I'll back up to one of your slides here. This is not a loan approval, this presentation. So, and oftentimes, or sometimes in a C corporation too, especially if it's public, obviously we can't get guarantees from individual stockholders of Apple or something. But for those closely held entities, we're usually going to try to get one. Let's get into the meat of this really quick. The 5 C's of credit: character, capacity, capital, collateral, and conditions. So I'll quickly walk through those. To me, as a lender over the years, the most important ones are character and capacity. So if someone has a good repayment character, and how do we get to know their character? Well, after we call the NSA, we're going to pull a credit report on the individual, the entity itself, to take a look at their trade history. If they report to, if there's any trade there, like if they're on an accrual basis. And then we're going to also pull personal credit reports. That's how we kind of, if we don't know the business from already being with us, we're going to establish character typically in that way. Capacity, well, that just means your ability to repay. So if you come to us and you say, well, look, I want to borrow $1 million, and we go, okay, well, let's take a look at all your information here. Your cash flow bottom line says that you could cash flow a loan for $500,000. We're not going to be able to do that, but we will come back and say, look, here's why. Here's what we can do for you. So that's capacity. We never want to extend somebody too far, because that's part of our profession too, is making sure that we're not putting you in a bad position. Capital, that's skin in the game. So I was talking about leverage earlier. So if we're going to lend $1 million, we want to see that you have some skin in the game, some capital. So we're going to look at your financial statements and make sure that, like, yeah, we're not over leveraging you, like 10 to 1 or something. Collateral, most lenders expect to take collateral, whether it be real estate, equipment. We can take even moving collateral, so to speak, like, and I don't mean like vehicles, but we can do that too. But like AR and inventory, things that go up and they go down. It just requires some additional monitoring where we say, okay, if that's securing our, like a line of credit, we want to make sure that we're getting some periodic reporting to make sure that we're not over that where you are right then in your collateral. Conditions, that's just kind of all other things like, okay, what's the economic environment look like? What's the interest rate environment? Does that work for this current request, sort of thing? So that is the 5 C's of credit, and we evaluate those on every loan that we do in some form or fashion. Financial exhibits, and I was kind of quick. There's a couple of things that I probably should have added here, but I'll just talk about it out loud. So how much information that we request from you is going to be determined by the size and nature of the loan request. So there's a lot of platforms out there, whether it be a traditional financial institution like a bank or a credit union, or a fintech company like OnDeck or something, that if your request is for $25,000, you might be able to get an answer in like an hour and get funded same day. Most traditional lending institutions like a bank, we're still going to lay a little bit of eyeballs on that. So you're probably going to be looking at a couple days for something like that. And we might not want as much information. So we're going to pull credit and we might go, hey, we got one question. Can we see this document or these 2 documents? Now, when you move up the chain in requests, so like, yeah, I want to buy this office building over here. We're going to go, okay, well, we want to see for your LLC or whatever your entity is, we want to see the last 3 years of tax returns. And whoever is signing on as owners, guarantors, we want to see your 3 last years of tax returns and all the included schedules, K1s, et cetera. So we can get a very accurate picture of the total cash flow and capacity for that borrowing group as a whole. Personal financial statement, debt schedule. And if you're an operating company, if we're coming in and you filed your tax returns in April and you're making your loan request in September, we want interim financial statements between the end of that tax year and now. So we can see how you're doing so far into the other year. And then we can also foot back to your tax returns and go, okay, well, these interims, are they of quality to us? So if they're like all over the place and we can't really, match it back to the tax return in any way, we'll talk about that. So I know I'm going fast here. So that's pretty much, what we're going to look at. And depending on the loan request, it can take, real estate loans take, sometimes 2-3 months to actually, from the time you apply to when you close. So we're talking all the financial analysis, appraisal, environmental reports, and all that. So that is a quick. I saw you stand up. I think that's 10 minutes. So, I'll try to make it fast, but any questions? Okay, go ahead.
How has COVID impacted you guys' ability to do business lending? What's been going on in your world with that?
Well, and I'll let Matt chime in too, but we have, it's been interesting because, it didn't really dip much. We actually, when COVID hit, we actually started reaching out to people and going, hey, what's happening? What's going on? How can we help you? And we did still see a reasonable amount of volume through COVID. And then we still do a lot of commercial real estate loans. And so those are like, hey, I've got this apartment up in Gresham or something. And so we're out there doing that stuff, but it means that we do a lot more stuff electronically. So we do drop boxes and stuff where people can park all their returns securely and all their financial exhibits, and we go retrieve them out of the drop box. And so
did you guys have more businesses fail during COVID that you had to deal with?
Yeah, we really, not really. I mean, we had a few that were kind of like limped along for a while, and we reached out and and to see how we could help out as much as possible. But we really didn't see a lot of business failures that we talked to. That doesn't mean that out of those 3,000 business memberships that we may not have a lending relationship with, that some of them silently closed shop and went away.
Yes. What about like ground floor? It's dirt you want to build up. Do you actually finance that? If it was a company coming in saying, hey, I want to build building right here, you finance those things also?
Yeah, we do construction. Okay. So it's a little different animal, and the next program's going to talk about construction, I'm sure. But so essentially, we have to monitor and be in control of that process, the funding of it. Right. So the contractors over here, they're going to be, here's the work we did, here's your draw sheets. You're going to go, oh yeah, I agree. Send it to us. We're going to go, we're going to send somebody out independently to take a look at it. And they're going to go, yep, I see all that stuff that they said that they put in there. Okay, sign off, and we're going to advance that round of money, and then until the project is complete. Yeah. And I'll be around after Matt too, if there's any further questions. But yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much.